Saga of a New World, Book 1, Dawn of the New World. Chapter 18, Another's Mind, Pirates. They have traveled far, so far that the air no longer has the chill to it Novi is used to from the north. Instead, it is warm and salty here out at sea. Novi hates it. The ship they are sailing on offers little privacy, as everyone is packed together on the same longboat. The sun and warmth make it difficult to focus, and the heat only becomes more problematic when she uses magic. Whenever she casts a spell, it warms the flesh it is channeled through. A welcome side effect in the snowy mountains or dark forests, but here under the hot sun, it makes Novi feel like her magic is baking her from the inside. The long clothes she's wearing don't help either. While she would much rather run around naked in this heat, her precious white skin would burn like fire by the end of the day, so she is forced to wear long robes that cover almost every part of her body. Not only do they feel uncomfortable and difficult to move in, but also soak in her own sweat and any water that splashes over the side of the ship. At least it's not as bad as running around in winter clothes or armor. Luckily, the back part of her ship has a large cloth tent spanned above it that protects them from the baking sun. Here she can at least take off the hood. She is one of only 2 healers in this house, the other one being an old woman. She is skilled, but the strain of using magic weighs on her harder than on Novi. It's understandable that she doesn't want to use her abilities on simple ailments Novi can easily heal. The advantage of knowing the lore of life and being one of the few available who do comes with its own special treatments and disadvantages. Sweat drips from her forearms as she heals the burns on her fellow elf's leg. Their house got into a short skirmish with a warship a few hours ago. They figured the ship to be part of the Confederation war fleet and originally intended to avoid it. None of them really know how to fight at sea, and a battle with a heavily armed ship like that would most likely only end with both their ships sinking. Still, the ship decided engaging them was a good idea and began the fight by firing their bolt throwers at them. The shot was extremely well aimed, and the pot filled with avalanche fire hit their ship dead center. Several of them were showered in the burning oil, and had Ivan, a scholar of frost, not reacted as fast as he did, the flames would have consumed their sail. After that first hit, they retaliated by hurling spells at the other ship, which disengaged after a fireball lit up their balustrade. Even though the elves' ship didn't suffer any serious damage, several of them got bad burns. The elf's face is contorted in pain, but it quickly relaxes as Novi's magic flows through the burned flesh. She doesn't have the strength to fully heal the wound, but she can remove the pain. Moving her hands over the inflamed skin reminds her just how much she hates fire, both the alchemical and magical kind. The wounds it inflicts are usually shallow, but incredibly painful and difficult to heal. The heat isn't helping either. Of course, she hates lightning even more. By the time she's done, she's gleaming with sweat. Her hands feel stiff and sticky as she stops channeling the healing spell. "Thanks," the man says. The burns on his leg are still there, but they no longer look fresh. "No problem," Novi wheezes. The other healer took care of the one with the worst burns, but 5 people got burned. More or less patching them up has exhausted Novi. The elf nods and stands up. He takes a few steps away and sits down on one of the rowing benches. Novi leans over the side of the boat and submerges her hands in the sea. Even though it's salt water, it feels cool. Slowly the cold penetrates into her hand. She misses the frigid north, the snow, and the fact that her life sight actually works. Here, the heat swallows the warmth of other creatures. Too bad they won't see the dark forests for another few years. The magic has left her drained and tired. She's not sure how long she just sits there with her hands in the water, but as she does, she can feel her strength regenerating. Her trance is interrupted by a yell. "Dragon!" She snaps upright, adrenaline suppressing her exhaustion. The massive red creature is still a good distance away, but the monstrosity is impossible to miss. It's coming straight at them. "By the gods, what is one of these things doing so far away from shore?" Novi yells. "Who cares? You guys have magic, shoot it down!" the elf from Lorma says. "No," the patriarch of House Lorthan yells. "Calm down, everybody, we have nothing to fear." Novi looks up at the red dragon with a mixture of interest and fear. As it circles above them, she notices a golden collar around its neck. Another thing she notices is that it's wearing a harness. As they continue rowing towards the shore, the dragon accompanies them for a while. Eventually, it seems to get bored and flies away. "What was that thing doing?" Novi asks the patriarch. "Most likely making sure that we're not hostile. The master is the paranoid kind." "Who?" Novi asks. "The master. He's a master enchanter and a priest of Aeor that has a fort nearby. He and his pirates control these waters, and we're going to make a stop there to restock our supplies and sell some of the goods we brought from the north." Novi rests while the others row the ship closer to shore. The fort, or Dark Heart Lookout as it is called, is built right next to the sea. It's a very simple building, made from the same white sandstone as the cliffs surrounding it. Thin bushes use the small amounts of soil and dust to cover the top of the cliff in a patchwork of green. The side of the fort facing the water has a wooden dock attached to it, with a single ship using one of 4 spots on the piers. While both the fort and port look poorly built, the ship is a masterwork. Most likely of Confederate construction, it is a beauty to behold. Even for someone who doesn't really know anything about ships, like Novi. They row closer to the wooden pier until they're close enough to toss the 2 waiting human workers their lines, and are quickly pulled closer. The 2 have dark skin and are wearing nothing but pants and beautiful golden collars around their necks. Novi also notices 2 people on the docks. An imp wearing purple robes and a golden crown. His entire body is covered in knives and talismans, giving him a dangerous yet comical look. The other person is an elf. His white skin tells her that he is a fellow high elf, but it has turned from pale white to an odd grey, at least in Novi's eyes. He's dressed in fine, long robes, and his only weapon is a dagger on his belt. Once their ship is secure, the imp says, "There are my favorite elves." Novi is taken aback. His accent is heavy, but he speaks the northern tongue well. What surprises her is his shrill voice. Even for an imp, his voice sounds high-pitched, which is only accented by the fact that he seems to be yelling everything. If she wasn't so surprised, she would have laughed. The patriarch stands up. "Novi, Derek, Haida, come with me." They climb onto the docks. As Ford tries to follow his wife, the patriarch says, "Ford, prepare our goods to be unloaded." Then he shakes the imp's hand and says, "And here I thought I could surprise you." A smile cracks the imp's mouth. "You know these are our waters. Nothing moves without our notice. My eyes in the sky make sure of that." The way the small furball raises his voice when he says some words and his shrill voice make him sound like an evil clown. The patriarch replies, "It's good to see you again. Where's Hancock?" The imp smirks. "He is somewhere in the fort." The patriarch nods and turns towards the high elf. "Dean, how are you?" The elf smiles. "I think I have gained a basic understanding of enchanting. Once we are done here, I think I want to return north with you." "We'll discuss that later." Sensing that their patriarch wants to change the subject, Novi asks the imp, "So, you're the master?" dominator of dragons and men, or a dragon for now, genius enchanter, priest of the Lord of Domination, and commander of this fort. He bows, causing the various weapons attached to his body to jingle. Though you may call me the Master for short. And you are new to this crew. What is your name? With a smile on her face, she answers, I'm Novi. For some reason, she already likes the little guy. His comically evil manner is both hilarious and endearing. A bit like a child, though he's probably older than she is. Novi, a sneaky name. Let me guess. You are of the lore of light. Novi chuckles. No, I practice the lore of life. Ooh! He claps his hands together, though his furry paws make no sound. I like that. Paralysis and the ability to drain the life from your enemies. Very good stuff. I see a few other new faces as well. Come, let me show you my bastion of evil. He turns towards his fort and throws his arms apart. Novi, Haida, Denik, come. The patriarch calls the three newest members of his house. He suddenly leans closer to them. While the imp is distracted, he says, I know he's hilarious, but try not to laugh. He takes himself very seriously. All right, the master, start the tour. Indeed, I will. You two. He points at the two humans. My minions! Help our guests unload their ill-gotten gains! He turns back to them. The first stop of our tour is right here! My docks! That over there is my ship, the Dominator. With it, me and my captain dominate the seas. Then he turns and walks towards the fort itself. Novi turns to Haida. She's grinning ear to ear. The master has the same jumpy walk all other imps have, and every time he takes a step, the weapons covering his body jiggle like little bells. As they leave the dock, Novi falls a bit behind to talk to the other elf. Before she can say anything, he says, You're new to House Lorthan. How did you join? I married 4. I wanted to ask you something about enchanting. The humans in the Confederation banned it, and we never really used it. I know the magic we use is releasing energy, and enchanting is when you put it into an object. But other than that, I don't really know what it does. Are the stories true that it's evil magic? That it's an affront to the natural order? Novi asks quietly. The other elf pauses for a second, then quickly leans closer. That little idiot over there is a devout follower of Eor. He is convinced that he can place souls in objects to power the enchantments, but that's not how it works. I did some research, and do you know the ultimate spell of your lore by any chance? Even though she's nowhere skilled enough to cast it, Novi knows the suicide spell of the lore of life. True resurrection. A spell that can bring a recently deceased back to life, restoring their body to the state it was in when they were a young adult and granting them a few moments of complete invulnerability, all while turning the caster into dust. She nods. A creature that has been sacrificed for an enchantment can be brought back using true resurrection, without doing anything to the enchanted weapon. This ancient experiment proves that souls are invulnerable to mortal influence. As for the reason why it was never properly used by us, it's simple. Elemental magic is superior to enchanting in every way. Our patriarch left me here to learn it, but I doubt it will be useful. It's even harder than normal magic, while normal magic is much more powerful. That and normal magic can be properly used without needing to sacrifice people to have anything of useful power. We often take prisoners, Novi whispers back. I consider a golden invocation a far better use of prisoners. Novi scowls. You don't need sacrifices to perform that magic. You don't need them for powerful enchantments either, but killing lower creatures is far more convenient than gathering 5 wizards to create a burning sword. I assume that it's the same thing with an invocation. As they reach the gate to the fort, the shrill voice of the master cuts their conversation short. "This is my fort!" They walk through the gate and enter a sort of courtyard. There's a stable to their left. A large building takes up the entire wall to their right, and a large tower-like building stands ahead of them. The stones are rough, and the walls not entirely smooth. While it's still too smooth to climb, it gives the entire construction a very unprofessional look. On top of the tower-like keep, Novi notices another human man. Just like the ones at the dock, his skin is dark, but unlike them, he's dressed in long robes and a hood protects him from the sun. He sees that Novi noticed him, but doesn't seem too bothered by it. Suddenly his eyes flick to the side where the master starts talking. Novi sees the man roll his eyes, then he disappears. "Anyway, to my left, you can see my stables. I don't actually own any horses or other mounts, but my patrons appreciate having a place to put theirs. Also, that's the place I keep the animals for sacrificing. To my right, you can see my house of pleasures. If you want to have a drink or need someone to spend the night with, I got you covered. I even bought a great singer from some pirates last year, a real talent with a voice to rival a merman. I can get him if you want some entertainment while you drink that journey away." Dennick quickly says, "Alcohol always makes me vomit, but I could go for some meat, and hearing something other than a sea shanty would be nice too." "You are in luck, because I murdered a pig just this morning to create an exploding arrow. You there!" he yells at a woman sweeping the courtyard. "Tell the cook to prepare some food." The woman nods and runs off. "Now, where was I? Ah, yes!" He's interrupted by a male voice. "I see you are showing the savages the fort." The dark-skinned man in fine clothes quietly closes the keep door behind him. "Everyone, this is my captain, Hancock. He makes sure I have everything I need for my evil designs," the imp says. The human turns to the elven patriarch. "If I remember, you are the leader, correct? I have a proposition that your gang might be interested in." The elf grins. "Let's hear it then." The man beckons him into the keep, and they both enter. Once the two are gone, the imp says, "Please excuse my captain. He takes his job very seriously, as he should. Now, where was I? Ah, yes, my tavern. You've come at a bad time, though. Now that the harvests are in its prime raiding season, most ships are too busy to sell their things here, but in a few days this place will be more alive than any city. Now, to continue this tour, I'm going to show you my workshop, or as I like to call it, the Dread Forge." They follow the little guy into the keep as he leads them up a flight of stairs into a room packed with equipment. From plants to tools used to work metal, everything seems to be haphazardly thrown together, but in the corner, Novi spots something interesting. A cage filled with about a dozen tiny humanoids not much bigger than a hand. The imp leads the elves through the chaos and past the wingless fairies out another door. They are now on a platform on the outer wall. A smithy has been set up here, but what draws Novi's attention is the blood-stained altar next to it. While she can assume that is the place the imp uses for his sacrifices, she does want to know more. "You use sacrifices for your magic?" she asks. "Of course! How else would I create objects carrying the most evil of enchantments?" "How does it work?" The imp smiles. "Sacrifices? I prefer dark elves or humans, but fairies are good for those smaller things, are secured on the altar. Then an assistant stabs them in the heart, and as they die, I draw their soul out with their blood. It is then infused into whatever I want to create the enchantment. A very cruel and evil process, I assure you. Once they are fused into the object, the soul is tortured every time the item is charged or discharged. We then feed the corpse to the dragon, or make them into food depending on how hungry I am. The imp cackles maniacally. Novi feels a laugh bubbling inside her. She manages to catch it, but not before a snicker escapes her lips. The imp, obviously thinking she's laughing with him, not about him, says, "Yes, the pain of others is hilarious, isn't it?" "Quite. Tell me more about the evil you do." To her left, she can see Haida suppress a giggle. An almost childlike glee lifts the small imp's face. "Of course! As you already noticed, that there is my altar of power. That is my forge of dreadful creation. And that is my table of dark infusion. Now let's get to the highlight of this tour." He takes a small bronze horn from his belt and blows. It makes a shrill sound. They wait a bit until the dragon finally soars above them. It flies a circle, then begins to land on the wall. Its wings toss up dust, and as it lands, the wind almost knocks Novi and the others off their feet. The creature roars, then settles down. With its wings tucked against its body, the monster looks a good deal smaller, but from head to tail it's still as long as their ship. The dragon's gaze falls upon them. Even though Novi is relatively sure that the creature won't hurt them, she's terrified of the fire-breathing monster. This is the closest she's ever been to one of the majestic creatures. The dragon opens its mouth and roars in a controlled manner. "They are from the north," the imp replies. For a moment, Novi thinks he's talking to them, but his eyes are fixed on the dragon. Haida says, "That thing can understand us? I thought only white dragons were smart enough for that." The dragon's eyes snap onto her. Before the imp can say anything, the dragon replies, The growling and snarling he uses to communicate causes him to slowly open his mouth. It reveals a large set of teeth, as well as a large fleshy tongue. The imp laughs. "He says that if you insult his intelligence again, he will eat you." Can I touch you?" Novi asks. The creature both fascinates and terrifies her. Its eyes focus on her. After a moment, it moves its head forward. Novi's heart is pounding as she moves her hand to touch its head. She expected it to feel like touching a brush, but the dark red fur that covers its body feels surprisingly soft and silky, a bit like very short hair. She moves her hand over the side of his head until the dragon recoils. He rises to his full height, spreads his wings, and takes off. The sudden blast of air from its wings causes Novi to lose her balance and fall over. Her eyes follow the majestic monster as it rises into the sky. The imp walks up next to her. "I love dragons. They have a certain elegance and beauty to them that only a creature that can burn down a whole town can have. Don't you think?"
Thank you for listening to this Ember and Sparks production. Click the box on the left to listen to the next chapter, or the box on the right to see an overview of all chapters available for this story. Check out the links in the description to listen to this audiobook without interruption. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to never miss a new story. See you soon.